I want to share an important message for Social Security recipients about the Cost of Living Adjustment, or COLA, for 2025. While many of you may be hoping for a significant increase, I have to be honest, it's not looking that way. If you're expecting a large bump in your benefits, you might be setting yourself up for disappointment. The projected increase is expected to be quite low, and I want to explain why that is and what you can expect for next year. For those of you unfamiliar with how the COLA is calculated, the Social Security Administration, or SSA, uses a formula based on inflation rates. Specifically, they look at inflation during the third quarter of the year, July, August, and September. The numbers for July and August are already in, with July's inflation rate at 2.9% and August's at 2.5%. We're still waiting on the September numbers, but most experts believe inflation will decline further. This means the COLA for 2025 will likely fall within the 2% range. To give you a clearer picture, the Senior Citizens League, which tracks this data closely, is predicting a COLA of about 2.5%. Now, if that's the case, it means the average Social Security recipient will only see an additional $48 per month next year. I understand that this might be disappointing for many of you who are dealing with rising costs, especially in areas like housing, food, and medical care. But I want to set realistic expectations. The increase won't be much higher than 2%, and you shouldn't expect it to be. Now let's put this into historical context. How does a 2.5% COLA stack up compared to past adjustments? Well, if you look back over the past 48 years, you'll see that there have been years where the COLA was much higher, and years where it was zero. In that sense, 2.5% might seem average, but here's the thing. Just because it seems average doesn't mean it's keeping up with inflation. In fact, Social Security benefits have not been keeping up with real inflation for quite some time now. If you look at the data from the 1990s and early 2000s, COLA increases generally outpaced inflation, which meant that Social Security recipients were able to keep up with rising costs. However, starting in the 2010s, the adjustments began to fall behind inflation. And in the 2020s, this gap has only widened. For many seniors, this means their benefits are not keeping pace with the rising costs of essentials like food, housing, and medical care. In other words, Social Security recipients are getting shortchanged, and it's making it harder for them to cover their basic needs. So why is this happening? The problem lies in how the government calculates the COLA. Right now they use something called the CPIW, which stands for the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. The issue with this method is that it tracks inflation for workers, not retirees. But retirees have different spending patterns, particularly when it comes to healthcare, which tends to rise faster than other costs. Many experts and advocacy groups, like the Senior Citizens League, have been pushing for the government to switch to a different inflation index called the CPIE, which stands for the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. This index takes into account the higher medical costs that seniors face, making it a more accurate reflection of the true cost of living for Social Security recipients. However, despite years of discussion in Congress, no action has been taken to implement this change. In fact, both the Senate and the House of Representatives have acknowledged that the current method, the CPIW, is not keeping up with the actual cost of living for seniors. There's even a bill in Congress called the Boosting Benefits and COLAs for Seniors Act, which would direct the SSA to use the CPIE instead of the CPIW, provided it results in a higher COLA. But unfortunately, Congress has yet to vote on it, so Social Security recipients continue to be impacted by an outdated calculation method. Well, while the projected 2.5% increase might seem reasonable on paper, the reality is that it's not enough to cover the rising costs many seniors are facing. The gap between the COLA and actual inflation is only getting wider, and this shortfall compounds over time. Year after year of small increases means that Social Security recipients are falling further behind. It's like a snowball effect. The longer this goes on, the bigger the gap becomes, making it harder for recipients to make ends meet. To put this in perspective, according to a recent survey by the Senior Citizens League, 7 out of 10 Social Security recipients reported that their household expenses rose faster than their COLA increase last year. The most burdensome expenses were food and housing, and it's not just renters feeling the pinch. Many homeowners are dealing with rising property taxes, which continue to climb at an alarming rate. All of this adds up to a situation where Social Security benefits simply aren't enough to keep up with the real cost of living. Before I wrap up, I want to share one last thought. If we continue to shortchange Social Security recipients year after year, this problem will only get worse. Over time, the cumulative effect of these smaller COLAs will have a significant impact on people's ability to afford basic necessities, and as the gap between benefits and actual costs grows wider, more and more seniors will find themselves struggling to make ends meet. So that's the reality of the situation for 2025. While a 2.5% increase might seem like it's in line with historical averages, it doesn't tell the whole story. The more important question to ask is whether the COLA is keeping up with inflation, and the answer is no, it's not. And unless Congress takes action to change the way these adjustments are calculated, Social Security recipients will continue to face this shortfall. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As a millennial who has contributed to Social Security for years, I have low expectations for the benefits I'll receive in the future. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Take care, and have a great day.